losers of the weekend. Aston Villa had a 2-0 goal lead in the 80th minute, and we fell like a pancake in a cupboard. That's an English saying that nobody understands. And Wolves, listen, Adama Traore was a one-man wrecking machine, and he helped Wolves to come back from behind and win 3-2. So they win. But also Manchester United, everybody, the vibes of Manchester United, as James Bench likes to say, they lose 4-2 to Leicester City. So let's talk. We can go anywhere here. Jimmy, let's begin with you. Obviously, Villa losing 3-2. As they fall and crumble to Wolves, but also Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer continues to get the vote of confidence. My question is, why? What's going on? I mean, we've talked about this forever, but you can go anywhere here. But Man United losing 4-2. What do you think?
Oh, I don't know where to start here. I guess with Ole Gunnar and the manager. I mean, when you get the public vote of confidence and the owners come out, it's like the kiss of death. I mean, I just feel like they either haven't worked out the terms with whoever the next manager is going to be with, or they're not close yet, and they got to figure out what's going to happen and how they're going to make that transition. Anytime you see that, it's a red flag that things aren't going well. So it's almost like you don't want the public vote of confidence. If I was somebody like, hey owners, don't if you're not liking me, just don't say you got my back. I don't want to see any of that in the papers. It's bad. But when I look at Manchester United, the whole Cristiano Ronaldo thing is interesting. I don't actually think he's good for the team. And that might come controversial or feel controversial or whatever. He's going to score his goals. He's going to have an impact in some capacity. He might raise the level of professionalism at the club. He might be a good role model for some of the younger players. But when it comes to getting out there and helping the tactics of kind of what they've already built, which included Jadon Sancho coming in and being very dynamic out on the wings, Ronaldo, I feel like in some ways this kind of gets in the way. And that feels really weird to say. Now, in some I don't know, parallel universe, if he had gone to City, I almost feel like he fits in better there because he can just be the big number 9. They maintain a lot of the ball.
Well, that's why they didn't let him go there.
Well, yeah, that's fair. So now you take that, though, and now you can't sub him off. Like you have this Ole Gunnar, I feel like, is stuck now with Ronaldo that he might not have wanted. But of course, you don't want him to go to City. You don't want him to go to any of the competitors. He's a club legend. So you bring him back into the fold, and now you're kind of square peg, round hole. And now I think we're starting to see, yeah, it was great, and everybody wanted the nostalgia, but I don't know if he necessarily fits. And then if we look at the game overall, it's a bit of a microcosm because you had some great individual brilliance. The goal by Mason Greenwood, fantastic. But where is that consistent? And we talked about it before, that team dynamic. Like, how are they trying to get at you consistently? It still feels very individualistic. Marcus Rashford came off the bench and scored a great goal as well. But defensively, they only have had one clean sheet in their last 19 games.
Yeah.
And we could argue they gave up 4 goals, and David De Gea was the best player on the fields. So for them at least, and that's crazy to me. Until they get that kind of righted, I don't know they're going to win anything. And I actually tweeted out that I don't think Manchester United's going to win this season. I was hoping that they could possibly push for it, but after what I saw,
we were talking about it.
I just don't see it because they're not comprehensive on both sides of the ball. There's too many little vulnerabilities, and I don't know. I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is defensively, right? Harry Maguire, bad turnover, get punished. But then there was
that goal, by the way, though. Oh my God.
Unbelievable. You get punished for it. I get it. It's phenomenal. But the Matic turnover, he was slow in transition.
Yeah.
Pogba could have sprinted back, and there was slow in transition. But I look at just sort of that defensive six, and I go back to, fortunately, we've moved away from comparing everybody or wanting every team to have. I'm blanking on his name now. Holding midfielder at Chelsea.
N'Golo Kante.
N'Golo Kante.
How could you ever forget his name, Heath?
Because all I've been thinking about is Ronaldinho since I brought his name up. I can't get him off my mind. But N'Golo Kante type, that's faster in transition, that understands that makes the game more predictable in ways that doesn't make it more complex, but actually makes it easier. And when I think about just the whole that is the transition game of Man United, it just seems like it can be one pass, it can be 5 passes, but eventually the other team is getting to the box very quickly against them, and they're very, very disorganized. And it seems like, okay, we can talk about Ronaldo, we can talk about Bruno Fernandes, and I still think with the two of them on the field, you're going to get brilliance, but you're going to get a lot of half chances, wasted buildups, things like that, where they both have this world-class ability to create magic. But if they're both trying to create magic from nothing, it's hard to find a rhythm. And I think we're not going to see the best of Jadon Sancho, which is why he's going to continue to be a bit part player. Why Rashford's going to struggle to find the form as he comes back in. Why Greenwood has moments of brilliance, but still doesn't know where he needs to be. And I, as Jimmy said, it's so many little pieces that I'm just like, if somebody was like, hey, you get one day to work with this team, focus on the back or focus on the attack. I don't know which one is the bigger problem with this team trying to go on this run towards winning a trophy. But for me, at a minimum, when you look at the quality that they have on offensively, and I know it's going to take a lot for them to score, I still say defensively, there's a problem. They need to shore that up. They can't keep giving up goals. If they're going to give up goals, they're never going to be able to compete. They're going to have to create too many individual moments of brilliance. The rest they can find a rhythm. They can learn to play together over time. But if you're giving up goals, you're never going to do that because each player is going to start thinking, oh man, I got to do a little bit more. I got to create a little bit more. And I think it's tough to find a cohesion or a team balance if you're wanting to do that.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm just going to add here, by the way, is like everybody just needs to remember before even Ronaldo came, okay? The biggest issue for Manchester United wasn't the goals. I mean, they have it. They can score it. Marcus Rashford, when he's healthy, Mason Greenwood, as we mentioned, one of the best finishers out there, I think. It's about the fact that when they lose the ball, the moment they lose the ball, wherever it is on the pitch, they look lost. They look absolutely lost. That's why James Bench calls them vibes, because it's like they rely so much on individual brilliance. Bruno Fernandes was that good in January when he arrived, and he sort of like masqueraded a lot of the collective issues that Manchester United was having. To your point about how many goals they've conceded, Jimmy Conrad, they're not a good team. They're not well managed, and I think that really goes all the way. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a good man. I was a very big fan of watching him play during the 90s. I think he's a great man manager. Players like him, obviously. He is not the person for this job.
By the way, I just wanted to say one last thing on that. When they asked Pogba about it, one of the things he included in things that need to change is the tactics. He was like, we need blah, blah, blah. And then he threw tactics into the middle of that, where I'm like, oh, I think
that's a grenade. He rolled a grenade right into the room.
Yeah. And I, he was like kind of like energy, and I don't remember what the exact quote was. Maybe Des can find that, whatever he said after the game, but he threw tactics in there that needs to change. It was like things that need to change. And I was like, oh, okay. He's starting to poke and prod a little bit and Des and I were actually talking about it offline about how you bring in all these other players to do these things, but if you don't have the right system in place, if you don't have the right players in place to make Pogba better, because I complain about Pogba all the time, but I also don't think he's being put in the positions to be his best. If his job is to have to put out fires all the time defensively, is that really where you want a player like that? And so him making that jab, I'm like, oh man, that's I'm reading that in all caps.
I think Ole Gunnar, they've just reached a ceiling with him. This is as good as it's going to get with him as manager.
Yeah, this is the hype.
And for a long time, he couldn't get past the semifinals, and now he finally got to a couple finals last season. I don't think he's a good enough manager to climb that mountaintop and get there. And I feel like they've given him more than enough time to figure that out. Obviously, he supplied him with more than enough players to figure that out. Not only did they give him that public backing, they said they'd give him $70 million in this transfer window to go kind of finalize that one last player. I'm like, okay, well, it better be Wilfred Ndidi or N'Golo Kante, or Franck Kessié potentially, because you need somebody who can just sit there and do that work so you can free up the Pogbas to do a little bit more and allow them to be a little bit more free going forward. I don't think they're too far away. There's still maybe one or two players and a manager away from really competing, but we'll see.
Luis, I got a question for you.
Which is a big need as well, by the way. By the way, if you're a Manchester United fan, please let us know. What do you think as well? And don't forget to keep commenting as well. And if you're listening on pods as well, make sure that you leave a review. You want to say something, Heath? Because Des did find that quote from you. Did you want to read it, Heath? Not the whole thing, but
I won't read the whole thing. But he says we need to change something. We need to find the mentality and tactics to win. We have to look at this and individuals and as a team to fix that. So it's kind of like, hey, we'll take some blame, but you need to take some blame. But Luis, the question that I wanted to ask you guys is, we talk about how he's reached this point. The sad part about this is when you go from interim to manager to this, like if there was a plan in place for the handing off of the baton of like, we know he's going to take it to a certain point, right? When you looked at the Brendan Rodgers handoff to Jurgen Klopp, I don't know if that was a project that led to the next point, but I think they saw a ceiling there. At a certain point, people were saying, yeah, but his record is worse than Brendan Rodgers was at this point after 50 games or whatever it was that they were comparing him. But it seemed like there was this progress, right? And so that you can look at Brendan Rodgers' time and say, hey, that was successful getting it to a point. Would you say that this is successful getting it to the point in terms of where it's at? Or is it just something that's not working and it needs something new? I mean, is this...
the only thing that I'm going to say here, right, is that because I've read comments about United fans saying, look what happened with the Klopp and how like they gave him time and all that stuff. Klopp came in with an identity. You know exactly what you're getting with Jurgen Klopp. That's why it took time, because those players were like, we need to figure it out. And once they did, it's heavy metal football. You get it. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't have that kind of identity.
He's also had 5 windows.
And a lot of windows.
And you know what? It's not even Solskjaer's fault. Everything changed when they beat PSG in the Champions League that time. And he got a new contract and everything changed. And Pochettino was still available. I'm not saying that he would have been the one, but at least Manchester United, the reason why they were so good in the 90s, you knew what the hell they were about. And that's what Manchester United need to do again. And they need a manager that comes in. Honestly, like, it's not going to happen. But Antonio Conte coming in and saying, we are Manchester United. This is what we're going to do. You don't lose the ball like that. And if you do, you kill yourself to get it back. And that's not the identity that they have with that. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Just really quick. I have a personal story that ties into this because one of my daughters is playing youth soccer and they're playing a couple times, training a couple times a week. And then when I watch the games and I'm going like, what are they working on all week? Like what's the plan here? You know, defensively, attacking wise, in transition, both with or without the ball. Like, I don't know.
Okay, psycho dad. Okay,
no,
psycho dad.
No, I don't say anything.
I'm sit in your car. Stop yelling at everyone.
I don't yell at anybody, you idiot. Listen, what I'm saying is I think Man United fans look at the same thing and they look at the field and like, what do you guys work on all week? You know, why isn't there a plan? Why are you giving up goals? You know, you only have 1 clean sheet in the last 19 games.
Yeah, that's not
What
good.
are you doing? And then on the attacking side of the ball, why is this so hard? We have so many talented players, both old and young. Why can't we figure this out? So I'm frustrated for United fans, and I'm the other United fan, and I'm suffering as well, but I get it in a different way.